Right now, Metro Atlanta veterans are wondering what will happen if tens of thousands of federal jobs are cut. Hear what one vet thinks the result will be. Also, we're seeing those tax refunds finally come our way. We're going to talk to one local expert about whether we should save it or whether we should spend it, and find out what's being done to make our highways less lethal. This is The Take. Let's get it. Hello and welcome. I'm Chesley McNeil, and this is The Take, where we go above and beyond the headlines to see why and how stories are impacting you and your community. We invite experts on to give their take. Of course, they have all the expertise. We want to know what they're thinking about, right? So we ask them the questions, the tough questions as well. Plus, we try to have a little bit of fun as well. All right, let's get the show started today with those planned federal layoffs. Here's what we know, folks. According to an internal memo, the Trump administration is planning sweeping job cuts at the Department of Veteran Affairs, with a target of reverting it back to the 2019 era staffing levels. That means close to 80,000 VA employees could be let go. Now, that's on top of the already 2,500 employees that were already removed. Veterans, in fact, make up 30% of more than 2.2 million people that are a part of the federal workforce. Joining us now is Sean Harris, a retired brigadier general with the United States Army. He spent 40 years in the military, including serving as a combat infantry commander in Afghanistan. Welcome to the show, Sean.
Hey, I'm glad to be here.
All right, glad you're here, man. Tell us what you think when you hear those numbers. What's your initial take on this?
Well, I tell you, those numbers are crazy. Our veterans are the backbone of our country, have served our country, and for the administration to be now cutting all these jobs, when we have more and more veterans coming out of a war that lasted for more than 20 years, the VA needs the support. Like you might have mentioned, I'm a 100% disabled veteran. I go to the VA, so I know that the VA is doing a very good job now, has improved, and I'm concerned that with all these cuts, we may be reverting back to something that we don't want in the future.
Tell us, give us a brief synopsis of what the Department of Veteran Affairs does.
You know, the Veterans Affairs, they actually take care of our veterans. They do the administrative side of it, but at the same time, they work with the hospital to ensure that we have all our appointments, everything that we need when it comes to our benefits, taking care of our families. And unfortunately, when we pass away, they make sure that our spouses have what they need as we go through that particular process. So it is the heartbeat of the system.
Now, as a result of job cuts, what would happen to jobs like this? What would happen as a result?
Well, you know, I hate to even think that we're willing to take that chance and make our veterans and their families go through such crazy pain. Some of the results that I'm fully expecting to happen is where things will slow down, will not be efficient. I know the current secretary is talking about we're going to be more efficient, but the reality of it is, since 2019 to now, the VA has got better. I'm worried that because we're trying to create something that is not broke, we're not trying to improve it. So that's my larger concern, and I'm going to be fighting every day to try to help our veterans to keep their jobs.
Got it. Now, full disclosure, you ran a campaign for U.S. Congress last year against Republican incumbent Marjorie Taylor Greene. She currently has a subcommittee tied to that government efficiency, and recently she spoke about federal workers. Here's what she had to say.
Those are not real jobs producing federal revenue. By the way, they're consuming taxpayer dollars. Those jobs are paid for by the American tax people who work real jobs, earn real income, pay federal taxes, and then pay these federal employees. Federal employees do not deserve their jobs. Federal employees do not deserve their paychecks. And these are jobs that can be fired at will.
All right, so give us your take on what she had to say there.
Well, I tell you, Marjorie she amazes me every day. And what I would simply say to that is this. Apparently, Marjorie Taylor Greene doesn't understand that a congressman, a representative, is also a federal job. So the question should be simply asked, is she doing the right job for the country? But specifically here in Northwest Georgia, where we at, is more than 40,000 veterans that live in this area that Marjorie represents right now. And many of them work for the post office across the board inside of our government and actually currently losing their jobs. So it hurts me for her to say something like that and for she not even understand that her job is a federal job. And if anybody should be losing their job, it should be her.
So, Sean, tell me this. What do you tell vets, regardless of their political views, about what they should be doing or getting themselves together with this swirling around?
Yeah, this coming Friday is going to be protests in Washington, D.C. And if you can't make it to Washington, D.C., go to your capital, depending on what state you're in. All the veterans across the board, doesn't make any difference. We Democrats or Republicans, we're coming to board to support our veterans and make sure that them and their families are taken care of. Because right now, the way these cuts are coming down, they're totally unexpected. We are tracking that on Thursday, on the 13th. Many people are going to be receiving letters, and on the 14th, going to be losing jobs. And we're talking about 80,000 people plus. That is something that all veterans got to come together, regardless of our political side, because we swore oath to this country, and that is what we're going to do when it comes to supporting each other and supporting the American people.
All right. Retired Brigadier General Sean Harris, thanks for joining us this morning. Really appreciate your insight.
Thank you for having me.
All right, take care now. All right, today the body of a missing high school coach who was found on Lake Oconee will be taken to the GBI crime lab. Expert searchers from a nonprofit in Wisconsin were the ones who ultimately found Gary Jones on Sunday after he and his fiancee Jocelyn Wilson went missing more than a month ago. An autopsy will be conducted to see if there was any foul play on his death and his fiance's death as well. Happening tomorrow, an important community conversation about gun safety. The Clayton County District Attorney will host a conversation to help neighborhoods, homes, and schools stay safe. Clayton County Public Schools, police, and the owner of Pretty Firearms will be there. The event will take place at the Clayton County Public School Cafe in Jonesboro starting at 6 p.m. Free gun locks and valuable safety resources will be available as supplies last. All right, let's take a look at this 7-day outlook and some good news here. Even though it's raining on the outside this morning, we got to deal with it this morning. Once we get to the afternoon, that will be over toward the east of us and out of the way. Cool afternoon, as you can see, temperatures only around 58 degrees. But we'll warm up nicely tomorrow. We'll get a rebound. Sunshine breaks out. 71 degrees will be the high temperature. My pick for the week, Wednesday, 75 for the high under mostly sunny skies. We got 70 on Thursday. That'll be our next chance for some rain to move in. Right now, it's a low threat, about a 30% chance for some light showers to be around. We'll catch a break again on Friday. Mostly sunny skies. You're looking at 76 for the high. And then there could be some storms that will roll into the area on Sunday. Now, this is far out, of course, so we can't really tell you the severity right now. But a cold front will come through, and it's looking more likely that we could see some severe weather in the area, especially Saturday night going into Sunday. Of course, we'll keep you updated on the severity of any storms that happen to move into the area, but we'll be keeping our eyes on this upcoming weekend. Until then, enjoy the spring-like weather with those 70s around, folks. Don't you go anywhere. We'll be back right after this.
Frugal Kitchens is...
All right, welcome back. This could be a pivotal week in Washington for millions of Americans, including right here in Metro Atlanta. A federal government shutdown looms as more tariffs kick in that could make consumer prices go even higher. Joining us now is NBC correspondent Alice Barr up in D.C., who's been covering politics for years now. And Alice, let's start off with this looming shutdown. The deadline is Friday, and House Republicans have unveiled their spending budget. What's in it, and is it likely to pass?
Yeah, so the big thing, top headlines to note here, is that it includes a slight increase in defense spending and a slight decrease in basically everything else, all other kinds of spending. And that is worth noting because Democrats don't like that. They want to see those two things move in tandem. If you're going to move up defense spending, then they want to see spending increase for a lot of the more social kind of safety net programs that a lot of Democrats back. They don't want to see them moving in opposite directions. So that's worth noting. It also includes some more funding for immigration and customs enforcement for ICE and for the immigration and mass deportation efforts that President Trump wants to see happen. So what we have to remember is that the House of Representatives has an incredibly narrow margin of Republican control. They can only afford to lose one vote and still have this thing pass. There's one who has already said that he is opposed to it. If one more jumps on the bandwagon, then it's not going to get out of the House. Now, beyond that, if it does, because right now leadership is saying they think that they're going to be okay, that they're still going to be able to get it through the House without more than that one defection. And House Speaker Mike Johnson wants to see this thing come up for a vote as soon as tomorrow. If it gets through the House, though, it has to get through the Senate. And the Senate is a much trickier beast because they're going to need at least 7 Democratic senators to join with all Republicans, if they get all Republican support, because they have to get to 60 in order to get it passed through the Senate. And that is going to be a lot harder. A lot of Democrats are not interested in cooperation right now because they're just very unhappy with the way the Trump administration has been operating.
Have they been vocal about cooperation or something they would do to kind of cooperate with the Republicans? Or
so basically, I think a lot of Democrats in Congress have been frustrated about how to respond to what has been happening, all the cuts to government agencies that they've been displeased with, not in no small part because they feel like Congress is being cut out of the process, that congressionally approved money is being kind of tossed out. And so what we've heard from a number of Democrats in the Senate as well as the House is that they don't want to sign on to anything without assurances that any kind of budget that they would agree to is actually going to get spent the way that they're signing on the line and agreeing to it being spent. Now, Democrats traditionally do not like to see government shutdowns. They have been on the other side of this and have advocated strongly time and again and have agreed to work with Republicans in the past in order to prevent a shutdown, furloughing government workers, all the things that come up when you have a shutdown. But this is one of those moments when some people are saying they have to kind of leverage this small amount, this window to use the small amount of political muscle that they have to sort of take a stand against other things they're objecting to.
all right, real quick before I let you go, Alice, got to talk about these tariffs. They're set to take effect on Wednesday. What's involved here, and do you think we're likely to see another about face on these?
Yeah, so now we're talking about 25% tariffs on all steel and aluminum imports that are coming into this country. President Trump and the Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick have said this is happening, this is going ahead. They both spoke out over the weekend and again defended the overall tariff strategy that President Trump has. He spoke about how he has the strong belief that that the tariffs are ultimately going to bring back American manufacturing, factories, jobs, all the kinds of things that really have stripped away from this country over the last number of years and have moved overseas, that President Trump has this belief that tariffs are the only way to kind of reverse that long-held kind of pattern. And he says, yes, there's going to be some short-term pain, but the long-term gain of kind of rebuilding the American economy is going to be worth it.
Okay.
I'll send it back to you.
All right, thanks a lot, Alice. Really appreciate your insight. All right, folks, getting a tax refund from Uncle Sam is very exciting, and this year those paybacks are looking mighty nice. The IRS says Americans so far have seen about $102 billion in refunds put directly into their bank accounts. That's up 10% from this time last year. The average tax refund has ticked up a little bit, cracking the $3,500 mark there. That's around $230 more than in the year 2024. But should we save or should we spend? Let's bring in the most well-dressed financial expert, Andrew Poulos, to break this all down for us. And so explain to us, is it better for our economy right now to spend that money or to save it? Talk to us.
Chesley, well, that's a good question, right? And I think overall saving is the primary focus. There was a U.S. News and World Report study just a few weeks ago, and it showed that more than 42% of Americans don't even have an emergency savings fund. That's concerning, if not alarming, right? What happens when you have your appliance break down or your car break down and you have $1,000, $2,000 expense? So for me, I would say that saving is super important. If you have an emergency savings fund, if you're good with cash and savings, then perhaps look at what kind of debt do you have, high interest credit cards that you can pay off and not continue to pay interest on the credit cards. But overall, just to take the money and spend it, pump it into the economy, take a vacation when you're not financially strong, then that would be a concern.
Talk about how tough it is. Like if you have something on the brink, maybe your stove, your washing machine, that kind of thing, and then you get this big, well, I was going to say a big windfall. You get a couple $1,000s coming back to you. How tough is it not to go ahead and splurge on that?
I mean, it is, right? Most people, unfortunately, use that tax refund as their big windfall for the year, right, to be able to save. We live in a society where between credit cards, and spending, it's a problem, and people just can't save. I see it all the time with our clients where they ask me what could they do to get more money back on their tax return. And I always tell them the best return tax return is the one where you're not paying Uncle Sam, but you're also not giving. If Uncle Sam is giving you, if the government's giving you back a huge refund during tax season, that means that you've given the government your money during the year to use interest-free.
So when you talk about savings, is there a way to save? You just go ahead and put it in your savings account at the bank, or is there another way that we should be saving that money?
Yeah, I always recommend, if you don't have an emergency fund, that's the starting point, right? If you don't have an emergency fund, if you don't have a couple $1,000s saved for those emergencies, the appliance that breaks down that you bought for $500 6 years ago, that's now is going to cost you $1,500, or the car breaking down when you go to the mechanic and it needs $1,000, you need to create that emergency fund. It needs to be separate from your regular bank account, from your checking account. If it's in your bank account, you're probably going to end up spending it. So open up a savings account. Maybe you get lucky. Look at a credit union, for example, where they might give you a little bit of interest. Put that money aside, whether you earn interest or not. Put it aside, leave it there. If and then that way you can have it in case of an emergency, and try to build up on that emergency fund as you go along.
Yeah,
each period or each month, maybe set a financial goal to put $50 or $100 to it if you can. That way you can continue to build up, and it's not just a one-time thing.
You mentioned a credit union. What about these online banks? They are offering a little bit more in the way of interest. Is that a safe thing to do?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, they're FDIC insured. I mean, and I'm not going to sit here and start naming names, but if you just do a simple Google search, you'll find a lot of these online banks. They're not brick and mortar, so they're able to offer more interest. A lot of times they have these bonus. Open up a high yield money market account, with $1,000, for example, and you get a $200 bonus. I mean, so you need to look into that. Mm-hmm. But yeah, absolutely. I have many clients who have bank accounts and money market and savings accounts with online banks.
All right, got to ask you this. You're the financial expert. So what do you do with your return?
Listen, man, I don't get a return. I have to pay in since I'm self-employed. I wish I was getting a return, but I try to give Uncle Sam the money every quarter. If you're self-employed, if you have freelance income, income pretty much, you need to make sure you're paying in during the year, or else Uncle Sam's going to hit you with penalties and interest potentially come tax season. Gotcha.
So do I need to put aside $1,000, maybe $2,000, $3,000 for a suit like yours? Hook me up. I mean, what do I need to do?
Yeah, we need to go shopping one day, and you need to tell me how you dress so well, so I can figure out how much I need to save for that.
No, I'm trying to keep up with you. Man. You're sharp, man. You're sharp. Really appreciate it, Andrew. Thanks for your insight, as always. All right, take care. Have a good day. Plenty more stories for you. This is The Take on 11Alive Plus. We're back right after this. All right, welcome back to the show. Managing Metro Atlanta's highways can be quite tough. In fact, it can be quite deadly at times. Tonight, the 11Alive investigative team is going to take a closer look at this. And joining us now is 11Alive investigative reporter Zach Merchant. Zach, talk about what you guys have coming up tonight.
Well, we do. We got a story coming up tonight. It is going to be at 11 o'clock right here on 11Alive Plus, and it focuses on a truly Atlanta topic, traffic and traffic safety. And obviously that piece runs tonight at 11, but right now we have the time, Chesley, to dig in a little bit, talk about the story, and share some of what we have learned.
So what's the big takeaway, Zach?
Well, look, the 11Alive Investigates team acquired a list from the Georgia Department of Transportation of hotspots of the most serious injury and fatal wreck-prone spots across all of Georgia's roadways. They gave us back a list of 11 spots statewide over about a decade-long span, so from 2013 to 2024. All 11 of them were in Metro Atlanta, and collectively they saw at least 450 wrecks with serious injuries and at least 78 with fatalities over that time frame.
Wow. So you saw the report. What was your initial reaction when you learned it?
I would say surprise. If you live in Metro Atlanta, you know that traffic congestion, unfortunately, yes, wrecks too, you see those almost as a way of life, and you hear those numbers and you can think that is a lot. And it is, because every one of those wrecks is a moment that changed somebody's life forever. But if you spend a lot of time on Atlanta's roads, you may also hear those numbers and think, well, I might have expected those figures to be higher. Here's what really stood out to me. GDOT, in the list of hotspots they gave us, they broke it down all the way to the individual mile level. And that means that all of those crashes, all of those serious crashes, all of those crashes with fatalities, they happened on fewer than 11 miles worth of roadway. And you think of in perspective, all of the tens, hundreds, however many thousands of miles of roads are in Georgia, all of that happened just on 11 miles.
I mean, Zach, we hear about accidents every single day here. Every morning we're reporting accidents. And does one road stand out more than another?
It does, and it's not going to be a surprise to you. It's not going to be a surprise to probably anybody who spends time in Metro Atlanta. It's the downtown connector. We got this data back from GDOT. 4 of the 11 top hotspots were all along the connector, and according to GDOT, at least about 110 wrecks involving serious injuries and at least approximately 20 involving a fatality happened on the connector over the time span of GDOT's list.
Did you get a sense of what's causing this at all? Is it
You know, we did, and we took this to GDOT spokeswoman Natalie Dale, and she put some, I think, important context and perspective on this information. And she said, look, of course, and this is something all of us can agree on, you want the number of wrecks to be 0. And anytime you see something like that as you're driving along the road, your heart goes out and you hope the folks are okay. But Natalie Dale also pointed out that about 400,000 vehicles travel the connector every single day. So even though you want those numbers to be 0 in terms of wrecks, 400,000 cars traveling it every day, it means statistically the connector is still quite safe. She also pointed out that most of the crashes there and on the other hotspots from the list, they usually involve an issue with driver behavior, things like distracted driving, impaired driving, or speeding.
Wow, yeah, a lot of folks on their phone or putting on makeup or whatever it is, right? You know, what else stands out about this report to you, Zach?
Well, you know, when you see a wreck and sometimes, you know, you can kind of think of it as a 1 times 1 sort of thing. There's not a lot of factors that go into it, but as we've done this reporting, it's become really clear to me that there is so much that goes into infrastructure and traffic safety. Quickly, one point that didn't make it into the piece tonight, but we want to talk about here. Professor James Sy over at Georgia Tech, he noted that there is a growing senior citizen population in Georgia, and he says that he's working to help boost infrastructure safety that takes them into account. Things like crosswalk timing. Sometimes they're built for people who might be moving across that crosswalk at a certain speed. When you talk about seniors, sometimes they might be moving more slowly. He is hoping the state's infrastructure continues to take them into account too.
Well, Zach, we can't wait to hear this report, this full report, man. Good information. Thanks for joining us to tell us all about it. All right, so our investigative team is on it, folks. You can watch Zach's full report tonight on 11Alive News at 11, streaming right here on 11Alive Plus. We can't wait to see it. We're back with my final take right after this. All right, calling all space fans, your next big design could make its way to the moon and back. NASA is asking creators around the world to design a zero-gravity indicator that will be launched into space aboard the Artemis 2 test flight. What is a zero-gravity indicator, you may ask? Well, it's a small, maybe plush item that gives a visual indication of when a spacecraft reaches space. For example, the plush Snoopy rode inside the spacecraft during the previous mission. Submissions are due by May 27th. Maybe a plush Chesley would work, right? All right, before we go, my final take. You know, over the weekend, you may have heard about an Alaskan airline flight attendant who was fired for recording herself twerking inside of an empty plane. She feels like she was unfairly let go, of course, and then she started a GoFundMe rather, to get some support for her finances, but she fell short of the $12,000 goal. The video has gone viral, but it's come with a lot of scrutiny for the young lady, of course, and well, the flight attendant was expecting love and support. Folks, I'm sure we're failing on teaching our young people that they have to be held accountable for the work conduct of these places that you work for. That's what you expect, and it's on you to find out what the policies are and act accordingly. Hopefully, she'll land on her feet. No pun intended. Thanks for joining us today, folks. We say goodbye with our Mona and Zen.